And that is that the Detroit Lions, this was yesterday I heard about this. This was after I made the video for my other channel. So I didn't know that this had happened then. What's up, Dave? How's it going, man? Appreciate all the support, Dave. Always in here. Usually you, Nick, Zay, a lot of folks keep coming. And like I said, eventually I'm going to be on camera and stuff like that. It's just a work in progress. I felt it was better to just start this thing than and worry about what comes later instead of trying to get everything perfect and never start it. But the Detroit Lions have decided to bring in 2 wide receivers. Now, remember that DJ Chark, we talked about him yesterday. And so what he did is he aggravated his surgically repaired ankle. Now, we got to talk about this. We've been talking about this since the season began. And like I said, we got to put some pressure. We got to put some accountability on Brad Holmes for signing injured players. What's up, AP? What's going on? What's up, Volcano? We decide to sign a dude who, when you think about it, the more you think about it, the worse it sounds. DJ Chark played 4 games in 2021 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, our former Detroit Lion, Marvin Jones, was his teammate. DJ Chark played 4 games, had his ankle surgically repaired, and he's going to be out for some time. So much time that we decided to host 2 wide receivers. Now, we actually did sign one to the practice squad yesterday. They hosted Stanley Berryhill and Antonio Nunn, and that was yesterday. Later that day, they decided to bring Berryhill to the practice squad after his workout. I have no idea who this dude is. No idea who either of these guys, Stanley Berryhill and Antonio Nunn. Now, that's probably because DJ Chark is going to be out and Josh Reynolds is nursing a sore ankle. Doesn't mean that they'll be elevated to the active roster, but that does mean that we have trouble. There is some concern at our wide receiver position. Now, the Detroit Lions had one of the worst offensive receiving rooms last year, by far. And they, in my opinion, outperformed. It wasn't until Josh Reynolds was cut via his request. The Lions were first on the waiver wire, and we picked him up. This was shortly after Odell was cut. And I knew that we were going to do it. You know, I say that loosely because to me it was a no-brainer. You had these guys that played together, him and Jared Goff, back in the day. So you knew he was going to be a big deal. Now, Nick says just a 1-year, $10 million incentive-based deal, no risk. It is very, very, very heavily laced in incentives. I think, Nick, that's $10 million if all them incentives are met. But here's my thing, though. No risk. I disagree with that, Nick, because if you're going to sign somebody who's coming off a surgically repaired ankle, that in itself is a risk. You understand what I'm saying? So even though it's money-wise, it's not a risk. But to our team and taking the chance on this guy, it's a huge risk. A huge risk. Because now there is no one opposite Jameson Williams. Now, instead of having to worry about potentially Chark and Jameson Williams whenever he comes back, we're going to have to, that's not going to be an issue, probably. According to Dan Campbell's press conference yesterday, Chark is going to be out probably for some time. Now, we did wind up putting Maurice Alexander, I think we waived him after the last game, then we wind up bringing him back. So we've got St. Brown, Khalif Raymond, Tom Kennedy, Chark, Reynolds on the roster. Quintez Cephas is on IR. I don't know if it's season ending or not. We've got Maurice Alexander, Josh Johnson, Brandon Zylstra, which is Zane's brother, and Barry Hill. I want to call this dude Benny Hill, and Barry Hill on the practice squad. Out of those two, the names on the practice squad, Maurice Alexander and Tom Kennedy both were elevated for the Patriots game. Now that says Holmes got to stop signing and drafting injured players. This is on him, 100%. If you knew that I had a pre-existing condition and you hired me, is that your responsibility or mine? It's my responsibility to tell you. It's your responsibility to make the decision. So to me, this is, again, a situation in which Brad Holmes is conceding defeat this year, right? Because we talked about how Jameson Williams was for the future. He didn't take a gamble, a huge risk, in signing Chark to a long-term deal. But the dude played 4 games for his former team. What did you think he was going to come do on our team? So now we are just a little better than we were last year. And when Jameson Williams come back, that's going to change everything. Dave says, hey, Grid, how are you feeling about the Jameson Williams pick now? The same way I felt about it before. We still needed defense. I trusted Brad Holmes once he went with those defensive guys. And 6 out of the 8 players out of the draft were defense. So I'm starting to understand that when Brad Holmes, it seems like when Brad Holmes took this job, he had conceded the first 2 years. Like, you know what? We're going to do this year 1. We're going to do that year 2. But by year 3 is when we should compete. We're going to kind of be floating around, be just existing while we build this team. We thought we had a deep wide receiver room when we cut Tom Kennedy after training camp. Oh, it's so deep, we got to cut fan favorite, old reliable Tom Kennedy. He wasn't picked up when we waived him. We brought him back to the practice squad. Came up big in that Seattle game. Huge, man. The first game that DJ Chark was out. And now Chark, I heard on Locked On Lions that they might consider putting him on injured reserve, which means that he'll have to miss 4 games. Now, remember, back in the day, I believe, before COVID, it was 7, if I'm not mistaken. But Chark is up for going on IR because he's no better yesterday than he was at the end of the game before he went out, which I want to say was the Minnesota Vikings. So the Lions bring in work. They work out 2 wide receivers, if you're just now joining us. And those receivers are 2 guys I've never heard of, Stanley Berryhill and Antonio Nunn. And yesterday, about a day ago, we signed Stanley to the practice squad.